don't think we got too far into this the other day, but I want to back up very briefly for a moment. I don't think I talked about this at all. The title of good man is hard to find. The character Red Sammy Butts, or Red Sam, as he's called also, says that, I think twice, might be only once. But what's the source of it? That is, where does that idea come from? I think, I could be wrong. I am not a Flannery O'Connor scholar, okay? I think it's related to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 19, verses 16 and following. And I'm going to give you the kind of a paraphrase of the King James Version. So, Jesus is out with his disciples and other followers. And a man comes up to him, and in other Gospels, he's described as a rich young ruler. A man comes up to him and says, "Good teacher," or "good master, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" This is the Gospel of Matthew. This isn't in the book. The short story begins on 361 in the 11th edition, if you're looking for it. So, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus doesn't just say, do X, Y, Z. He says, why do you call me good? No one is good but one. That's God. But if you want eternal life, keep the commandments. So, why are you calling me good? There is no one good but God. A good Jew, back in Jesus' day, would know that. That you don't call anyone good. Psalms and Proverbs says, only God is good. Humanity, is touched or tainted by evil, so to speak. So, keep the commandments. Which ones? He's thinking like most of us do. What's the bare minimum? 10 commandments. Which 7 do I need to, where's the pass line? What's the least I can do to be saved? Okay? Which ones? Jesus says. He doesn't give them all the 10 commandments. He gives them several. Let's see. Don't murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Don't lie. Honor your parents. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do those and you're cool. Got them. Done them all. From the day of my birth to now. I'm cool on all those. What do I lack? What else? In other words, is that it? What else do I need to do? And we're told, Jesus said to him, if you want to be perfect, go sell what you have, give to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven. And come and follow me. In another version of it, we're told, Jesus, perceiving the young man's heart, knowing he was rich, said, go sell everything you have, give it to the poor, that is the money you make from selling everything, and come and follow me. Throughout the Gospels, when he says, come and follow me, what does that say? Take up your cross, follow me. Die to self, blah, blah, blah. All right? Here's why I think that's important. I think Jesus is saying there to the young ruler, way to go. You called me good. There's no one good but God. What's his point? You recognized me. Okay? You saw that I'm good. Only God is good. At the end of the short story, we have this long discourse, this long conversation between the character of the misfit and the grandmother. Okay? What are we told within the second page? By the time we get to the bottom of the second page, what are we told about the grandmother? Why does she dress so nicely for this trip to Florida? It's the very last sentence and the final full paragraph on page 362. Because if there is an accident, she want to make sure that anybody who finds her dead body on the side of the road would know she was a lady on the basis of her clothing. Okay? what it's meant by it would know that she was a lady. She was good, she was moral, she was upright, she had standing, she had class, all those things that are going to be determined by what? This, okay? So we'll talk about that again when we get back to the misfit. So, they get on the road, they start going. Remember, the grandmother doesn't want to go to Florida. She wants to go to East Tennessee. Why? See friends and family. And what's another reason why she doesn't want to go to Florida, specifically? What did she spend the morning the day before doing? Shaking that newspaper at her son and then her daughter-in-law, saying, look here what it says about the misfit. He's between us and Florida. And then she makes that statement, I couldn't do anything, or I wouldn't do anything that would place my family in danger. I could live with my conscience if I did. We're told top of 362. Okay, that's an example of two things, two literary techniques. One, irony, dramatic irony. She says something that she doesn't know the truth of what she's saying. And foreshadowing. Why? It is specifically because of her that they meet the misfit. She is the one to blame, ultimately, okay? And it's foreshadowing because they are going to meet the misfit on the way to Florida and get to the bottom of the page. Somebody at some point is going to find her dead body by the side of the road, okay, to give everything away. So they make their way. They leave Atlanta. They leave in the morning. We get the mileage on the odometer of the car. They go past Stone Mountain. Children want to go through Georgia quickly because it's an ugly state, according to them. And she says, back in my day, this is page 363, paragraph 17 or 18. In my time, children were more respectful of their native states and their parents and everything else. What does she mean in my time? When I was a child? Or when I was young? What's that another way of saying? People today still do this. Why? This is an age-old human trope or image that we use. Back in the good old days, when everybody behaved properly, when the world was simpler, when people were kind of blah, blah, blah. And it is all blah, 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 by the way, okay? People think, our politics and everything is turmoil today. Sheesh. This is nothing compared to the late 60s. So, back in my day, she says, children were respectful of everything. People did right then. Back in this golden age of her youth. Look at the rest of the paragraph. It's really important because it helps reinforce our understanding of the grandmother and what she considers to be part of the good old days. Oh, look at the cute little pickaninny, she says, and points to a Negro child standing in the door of a shack. Wouldn't that make a picture now? She says. And everybody looks and sees this little boy, June Star. He didn't have any breeches on. So apparently he has a shirt, but no pants. Grandmother probably didn't have any. I'm not going to use the word she uses. Little blacks in the country don't have things like we do. If I could paint, I'd paint that picture. Why would she paint the picture? What is her point? This little image should be frozen in time. It comes in the context of her discussion of what? The good old days. This is what things used to be like. Now, I'm not talking pre-Civil War. Grandmother is not that old. This is set sometime post-1945, definitely before 1953. That's when it's published. So 45 to 52 or something like that. All right? She's probably in her 60s, so she would have been born in the late 1890s or late 1880s. but she's talking about the Deep South during the Jim Crow Reconstruction era, where, okay, slavery was gone, but blacks were still held down by the laws passed by Southern Democrats. She wants to immortalize, she wants to freeze this. They keep driving on. They go past a cemetery. What do they see in the cemetery? 5 to 6 graves. How many people are in this family?
6.
Grandma, Bailey, his wife, the baby, June Star, and John Wesley. Notice the only named people in the family are Bailey, June Star, and John Wesley. There are 6 of them. They go past a cotton field that has 5 or 6 graves in it. Foreshadowing. Okay? She says that's the old family burial ground from the plantation. John Wesley, where's the plantation? It's out in the burial ground's out in the middle of a cotton field. There's no plantation house nearby. And grandmother says, "Gone with the wind." And it's capitalized. Why? Because of the novel. Written in the 30s, filmed 38, 39. Still relatively new by that point. The plantation has gone the way. The implication is of all the other good things of the old Deep South. Okay? So, grandmother says she'll tell them a story to keep them occupied as they drive along. She talks about a man who courted her once. All right? They keep driving along, and they come up to the tower. Place to stop and get food and gas. Sign outside, page 364. Try Red Sammy's famous barbecue. None like famous Red Sammy's. Red Sam, fat boy with a happy laugh. A veteran. Okay? I mean, if he's a veteran, you know you can trust him, in other words. Right? So, Red Sammy, when they stop, is underneath a car making repairs. They go into the restaurant part of the gas station and order their food. The person inside is Red Sam's wife. June Star goes onto the dance floor, does a little tap routine, and Red Sam's wife says, middle of 364, "Ain't she cute?" What does she mean? She means literally, this little girl's cute. There's a good little tap routine. And then she says to June Star, "Would you like to be my little girl?" June Star, "No, I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't live in a broken down place like this for $1 million. Emphasizing what we've already talked about June Star and John Wesley. These are little brats. They haven't been taught respect. They haven't been taught how to address a stranger. You don't just, essentially verbally flip them off. And that's what that was. Okay? Red Sam's wife again says, "Ain't she cute?" What did she mean the second time? Little bitch. That's what she means. But she uses the exact same words. Notice, it's all in how you say it. Okay? Red Sam comes in. Wipes his face off, tells his wife to hurry up on these people's order. So she's not only taking the orders, I think the implication is she's the cook. She's got to go make the burgers and stuff. Barbecue. Okay? Red Sam. You can't win. These days, you don't know who to trust. Ain't that the truth? Grandmother, people are certainly not nice like they used to be. And if I were doing like a short film of this, I'd have her look at her granddaughter because of what the snide comment she just made to Red Sam's wife. So Red Sam explains what he means. 2 fellas came in last week, didn't have any money, They had a good car, needed some gas. I let them charge it. What does he mean by charge it? This is not on a credit card, folks. He let them fill up their gas on the basis of their word that they would return and pay for it. They didn't. Okay? What does Red Sam show by doing that? Kindness, compassion, goodness. Good man is hard to find. Why did I do that? And the grandmother says, because you're a good man. That's what a good person does. Yes, I suppose so. And then his wife comes in carrying all their food. And she says, it isn't a soul in this green world of God's that you can trust. And then she looks directly at her husband. And I don't count nobody out of that, not nobody, looking at Red Sam. Why? The grandmother has just told us Red Sam is a good man. He trusted those other people. Why? Because, psychologically speaking, he is trustworthy. He's a good person. Good persons, good people, look at other people and assume they are like them. They're good. His wife says, ain't nobody good. None. What did Jesus say? There is none good but God. She says, isn't a soul in this green world of God's that you can trust. I think that's a way of saying there ain't a soul in this green world of God's that is good. Okay? So the grandmother asked, y'all heard about this criminal, this misfit? Sam's wife, yep, I wouldn't doubt if he shows up right here. Wouldn't be none surprised. Sam, shut up. That'll do. I mean, shut up. Get back to work. Sam, a good man is hard to find. The grandmother called him a good man. There's our title. Everything is getting terrible. I remember the day you could go off and leave your screen door unlatched. Not no more. What does it mean, go off and leave your door unlatched?
Leave your door unlocked while you're not home.
Which door?
Front door.
He means the screen door over the front door. The front door is open. That is, you left your front door open. The other door is the screen door that allows air to go in and out. And you left that one unlatched. So you'd have a little like an eye hook that you'd latch on the inside. No. I remember the days when you could leave your house, front door wide open, and just the screen door pulled to. Why? No crime. Nobody's going to come take your stuff. Why? Because their home is left the same way. And by the way, there is a reason for doing this, other than just trusting people. If you're talking deep south, middle of summer, old houses, no air conditioning, what is one way to keep the house cool? If the house is what's called a shotgun style house, that is, you can walk from the front door straight to the back door with never hitting a wall. You can fire a shotgun from one end to the other and not have it hit anything. You leave those two doors open with screen doors on them. Screen doors to keep the bugs out, and you get a cross breeze that keeps the house kind of cool, or cooler than it would be, all right? And they discuss better times. And what do they blame for the ills of the world now? Europe. Why Europe? World War II. Okay? Why did Germany become, within 20 years of World War II, an economic powerhouse? Why did Japan, within 20 years, become an economic powerhouse? Because we, the United States, not the United States, Britain, France, and the Allies, the United States rebuilt their economies. Okay? So that in the 60s and 70s and 80s, very, very early 80s, Japan and Germany had greater economies than the United States. Not greater in the sense of the amount of money spent, but better, higher GDP, gross domestic product and stuff. All right? At this point, we're funneling all kinds of goods to Europe. Rebuilding. Never in the history of warfare, human civilizations had one country rebuilt the countries it defeated in war. Okay? Now, let me pause. Everything is getting terrible. What's he talking about? It's not made explicit. Other than that, you do have this crazy guy named the Misfit roaming around. O'Connor, in one of her letters to an individual, not the same one I alluded to the other day, talks about what she sees as the kind of the central problem that confronts in all of her stories. And she calls it, ultimately, the human condition that people have got to confront. What it means to be human, what it means to be living right here and now, whenever that right here and now is. Okay? So let's say late 40s, early 50s for them, not 2024, obviously. In this letter, she talks about the philosophy of the day. Not philosophy, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, those guys. The general dominant view of the world and what the world means and our place in it. Okay? Two dominant ideas in the 40s and 50s. Existentialism and nihilism. Okay? Existentialism, this philosophical belief that ultimately our lives are meaningless. Why? Because there is no God. There's no heaven, there's no hell, there's nothing after life. You die, that's it. Your body rots. What you think of as being you, your consciousness, awareness, dissipates with your atoms. Okay? That's essentially what existentialism teaches. Its foremost proponents, Jean-Paul Sartre and Paul Camus, that's C-A-M-U-S, in the 1930s and early 40s. Sartre was essentially a playwright. He wrote, a couple of famous plays, the most famous of which is No Exit. In other words, there's no leaving this. This is all there is, in other words. You don't leave here and go off to a better place when you die. You just merely die. Camus wrote a book based on the myth of Sisyphus, ancient Greek tragic hero. Sisyphus, because of something he did, pissed off the gods, and he was condemned to push a rock up a hill. And he'd get just to the top of the hill, and the rock would roll back down. He had to do that for eternity. Notice, what does that mean? Everything he does is what? Futile. There is no purpose. There's no purpose. None. Okay? But you got to keep doing it. What the existentialists taught is that you had to authenticate, or to use another word, validate your existence. You had to act like the author of your life. What the hell does that mean? Why does an author write a book or a story? Is it just to tell a story? No. Every author is trying to do what when he or she writes a story? Communicate a message. Some kind of message. Some kind of idea. They're trying to put something they've got in their head into your head. Okay? So, with this idea, you've got to do what? You've got to give the idea or meaning for your own existence. Why? Because God doesn't exist. You're not here because you're a child of God, blah, blah, blah. You've got to make meaning for it. How can you do that? How do you make your life worthwhile? How do you make it have meaning? Without reverting to supernatural pleasure or punishment. These two and other secular existentialist, essentially said, you do something so that others know you exist. So others know you've been. Now, that idea goes back thousands of years. That idea is that we all want people to know long after we are dead that we were. It's the idea of fame. Okay? Well, how do you do that? They gave examples. They gave everyday, ordinary examples. Okay? You could help someone, not because you're going to get some great eternal reward, but just because that person will then know you exist. That person will remember. So how can you help someone? Get on TikTok. There's all kinds of videos. Or YouTube, Facebook Reels, and YouTube even. All kinds of videos of people helping other people in need. Some little old guy's crossing the street with, a grocery bag, and the bag rips and his stuff spills out, and people drive by and drive over his stuff, and others stop and help him. That help a little old lady across, that's one way of doing it. Help somebody in the inner city. Okay? What's the flip side of that? Notice those are both positive. Helping others. Well, you could push the little old lady off the subway thing into the track in front of an oncoming car. She knows you exist for a moment. The people around you know you exist. In other words, you can do what? You could be me, rotten SOB. You can inflict pain and suffering. Sound like anybody within living memory of the time frame of the story? Late 1940s, early 1950s? What just finished? World War II. Guess who will still be in the human public consciousness for another 200 years? What will political people, parties, still be using against their enemies or opponents, maybe I should say? What will they still be calling those they politically disagree with? Nazis. You're just like Hitler. Why? Ooh, just say the word. How come people today don't name their child Adolf? It's the same reason people don't name their child Lucifer. Name of Satan. What does Lucifer really mean? Anybody know? Bearer or carrier of light. That's a great name. But it's, kind of tinged because it's tied to one specific individual. Okay? So, you could do a great work of charity, Mother Teresa, going to the slums of Calcutta for 50 years. Now, she did it because she said she was sent by God. Okay? She's not buying into this. She's into a whole reward and punishment ideology. All right? Or you can do something horrible. Why? Because even if you kill 6 million Jews and homosexuals and gypsies and Poles and Catholics and artists, what happens when you die? Nothing. There's no punishment. So why not take everything you can? Kill the people in front of you and get what you can. No punishment, right? That side of this is this, nihilism. Nihilism comes out of the thought of a German philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche. Hitler loved Nietzsche's ideology. Okay? Nietzsche essentially said, he's the one who coined the phrase, God is dead. And when he said God is dead, he said, and that makes all things possible. If there's no longer a God, there's no longer a system of reward, heaven, there's no longer hell. Amen. Anything goes. But he also said, and because God is dead, that means we have no meaning. He differed from these two who came later. He died in an insane asylum, by the way. He died of insanity. Where was I going? He differed from these two in that he said, and there is nothing you can do that will give meaning to your life. Nothing. None of us, according to Nietzsche, have any meaning at all. What does that logically lead to? What kind of mentality? What kind of outlook on life? What action should, I'm going to say should, that logically lead to? Suicide. Think about it. Because I'll bet every person in this room, whether you are quote unquote religious or not, you think there's something important about living. If there's something important about living, there's a reason for you to live. If you don't think there's any reason to live, then what? For most people who think that, what do? They stop. They kill themselves. Okay? A lot of people say, not an accident that he died of insanity. Because that kind of thinking leads to insanity. What is the definition of insanity? It's lack of reason, lack of rationality. All right? All of this, part of the human condition. These ideologies are in ascendance in the late 40s and 50s. They're growing. You know, the quote-unquote dominant, in the Western world at least, the quote-unquote dominant, religious perspective, Christian perspective, that's been dying at this time. That had been dying for over 100 years. With the rise of the Industrial Revolution, the Age of Enlightenment, the Age of Reason, religion, religious beliefs, supernatural, all that started to slowly go by the wayside, okay? That's what O'Connor says she's trying to draw attention to. One of the things. Okay, all that left aside now. They keep driving, okay? And the grandmother, we're told, page 365, paragraph 45, they're outside a town named Toomsboro. The dwelling of tombs. That's what Toomsboro means. Okay? She wakes up and she remembers an old plantation she'd visited in this neighborhood that is in this area. So she's woken up from sleep. She sees a town, Toomsboro, sees a sign, and she remembers this town from her youth. She talks about a plantation house, 6 big columns out front. I'm not going to keep opening the door. She remembers the column. What's the import? Why is this house important? It had a secret compartment. And what was left in the secret compartment? Silver. She's got 2 little kids. What do they immediately think of? Treasure. Let's go find it. Okay? Treasure was hidden because of when Sherman came through. John Wesley. Hey, Pop, can't we turn off? June Star. Never have seen a house with a secret panel. Let's go to the house with a secret panel. Hey, Pop, can't we go see this house? Grandmother. It's not far from here, I know. Bailey. He's just driving straight ahead. Why? Like when she's shaking that newspaper over, he's not listening to a word she says. No. Children begin to yell and scream that they want to see the house. John Wesley kicks the back of the front seat. June Star hangs over her mother's shoulder, yelling in her mother's ear. John Wesley keeps kicking the back of the seat, hitting his father, because the seat doesn't have thick padding, in the kidneys. All right, he stops the car. Will you all shut up? Just shut up for 1 second. you don't shut up, we won't go anywhere. Grandmother, it would be very educational. There it is. Got to do it for the children. He says, all right, but this is the only time we're going to do this. And she tells him, that dirt mile you went by about a mile back. The dirt road you went by about a mile back. That's where it was. He's like, dirt road? Seriously? Bear in mind, the time this is set, what do we not have crisscrossing the United States? East, west, north, and south. The interstate system. Eisenhower began that in 55. There's no I-75 that goes through Georgia. 301, I believe, that they would have taken from Atlanta to get to Florida. So they're talking about it. They start going back, and the kids start saying how they're going to get in the house. Bailey's listening. Now, you can't go inside the house, so why are they going back? If you can't go inside the house, why turn around? He thinks he's going to buy a few minutes of peace and quiet. In other words, how does Bailey parent his children? He attempts to placate them. What is every time he gives into his children, what does that do? Gives him a short break. What does it do for them, though? What does it teach them? I think O'Connor, she was never a parent, but I think O'Connor's getting a little bit of, parenting advice in here. It gives the children power. It's like, if you don't stop that, I'm going to spank you. Child doesn't stop. I'm serious now. And you do that a dozen times, what's the kid learn? I should not go there, but it's appropriate. It's like the administration telling the Houthi rebels in Yemen, if you don't stop shooting your missiles at our ships, we're going to get really angry. We're going to do something. 3 soldiers killed, over 30 wounded, 6 of those seriously wounded last weekend. We shot 1 missile. Destroyed 1 missile with the missile we shot. What have we not done? Go in and whoosh. Even liberal Democrats are saying, you got to teach Iran a lesson here. You got to tell them. You poke the bear's going to poke you back. Okay? Us being figuratively the bear. So, Bailey says, you can't go inside this house. And his mother says, well, I'll stay in the car. So again, why go? Bailey, this place had better turn up in a moment, or I'm going to turn around. Grandmother, it's not much farther. And as soon as she says that, what pops into her mind? Damn. Wrong road. Wrong state. The plantation isn't here. And when she does that, she jumps. When she jumps, she kicks the box that the cat is in. Lid pops off. Cat, I don't know if you've ever driven in a car with a cat. Cats don't like cars. When my wife and I moved from Chattanooga to Jacksonville, North Florida, temporarily living with her mom, our cat got out of its cat carrier in the car. My wife was driving the car, I was driving the U-Haul, and the cat was everywhere. Okay? This cat doesn't go everywhere. It goes to one spot. Onto Bailey's neck. Claws drawn. Okay? The children were thrown to the floor, and their mother, clutching the baby, was thrown out the door onto the ground. Notice, we aren't told that after the cat sprang onto Bailey's shoulder, they had an accident. We're told the results. The old lady was thrown into the front seat. The car turned over once, landed right side up in a gulch off the side of the road. Bailey remained in the driver's seat with the cat, gray-striped, with a broad white face and an orange nose, clinging to his neck like a caterpillar. And the children, once they see that they can move their arms and legs, yell, "We've had an accident." Grandmothers curled up under the dashboard, hoping she was injured so that Bailey's wrath would not come down on her all at once. And now we're told what the thought was that made her jump. Bailey removes the cat from his neck with both hands and flung it out the window against the side of a pine tree. Now, I don't know about you, there's only one way I read that. He kills the cat. Damn cat. As hard as he can against the pine tree. Then he gets out of the car and starts looking for the children's mother. Where is she? She's sitting against the side of the red-gutted ditch, holding the screaming baby, but she only had a cut down her face and a broken shoulder. See, if you listen, that link that I sent to O'Connor reading this, that part should be humorous. I mean, she only had a cut on her face and a broken shoulder. I don't know if you've ever broken a shoulder. 2010, I think I might have told the story. I stepped out of my garage, big garage door, to put trash in the trash can. This is January 7th, 2010. We had big snow and ice storm like we had 2 weeks ago. I stepped on that, it was like a banana peel in a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Feet up, broke my fall like this, totally severed all the tendons and muscles in my shoulder, rotator cuff. Pain like you cannot believe, okay? That's a broken shoulder, essentially. And it was all she had, other than a cut on her face, okay? This is understatement, meant to be humorous. June star, but nobody's killed, she said with disappointment as her grandmother limps out of the car. Meaning, damn, the old broad is still alive. She just won't leave us. The children's mother says, maybe a car will come along. Grandmother, I believe I've injured an organ. In other words, I'm hurt. Okay? So, let me remove all of this. Here's the road. They're now down. The car is down. The car's in the gully, right? Landed right side up in a gulch off the side of the road. Okay? And the gulch comes over here, and then over here are pine trees, pine wood forest. It's Georgia, man. There's just pine forests everywhere. Here's where the car was, and off in the distance, you can see on a hill another car show up. Notice the children's mother says, maybe a car will come along. Maybe help will come. The road, this road, is about 10 feet above where their car now is. So they can only see on this side of the road, there are also pine trees. Okay? They can only see the tops of those trees. But off in the distance, away on top of a hill, coming down slowly, as if the occupants were watching them, is another car. They're probably looking down the gulch ways towards this other hill and see this car. Okay? The car pulls up. What are we told? Paragraph 70, page 367, the last sentence. Sorry, second to last sentence. It was a big, black, battered, hearse-like automobile. Why hearse-like? What's a hearse? What kind of car is a hearse? Carries dead bodies. You go from the funeral home to the cemetery. That's all. It's the only reason for a hearse to exist, to carry dead bodies. Foreshadowing. Comes to a halt over them. Driver looks down at him. He eventually gets out. Two others get out. One was a fat boy in black trousers, red sweatshirt, with a silver stallion embossed on the front of it. He moved around on the right side of them, stood staring. His mouth partly open in a kind of loose grin. The other has on khaki pants, a blue striped coat, gray hat pulled down very low, hiding most of his face. He came around slowly on the left. So, the family is standing here. One of them comes and stands on one side, and the other one comes and stands on the other side. Then the driver gets out. He looks down at them. He's older than them, than the other two men. His hair is turning gray. He has on silver-rimmed glasses, which make him look scholarly. He doesn't have a shirt on. Has on blue jeans, too tight for him. He's holding a black hat and a gun. Oh, the two boys also had guns. Like the narrator forgot to mention that earlier. They're standing on either side with guns, and now this guy comes out. He's got a gun. Children scream, we've had an accident. The grandmother looks at this guy and she has a peculiar feeling about him. He says, I see you all had you a little spill. Grandmother, we turned over twice. No, only once, I saw it. Try their car, see will it run, Hiram? John Wesley. Ever the prescient little boy, out of the mouths of babes kind of a thing. What you got that gun for? What you gonna do with that gun? Lady, the man says to the children's mother, would you mind calling them children to sit down? But you children make me nervous. I want all you to just sit right down there where you're at. June Star, what you telling us what to do for? Because I'm the one with the gun. Bailey, back up. Paragraph 80. Behind them, the line of woods gaped like a dark, open mouth. What kind of language is that? What kind of literary technique? The woods of personification. The woods have just been personified or anthropomorphized because woods don't have mouths, do they? Trees don't eat. I mean, they suck up nutrients from the roots. But now, this wood, like, and the mother says, come here. Bailey, look here now. We're in a predicament. We're and the grandmother finally realizes who it is. You're the misfit. I recognized you at once. Yes'm. But it would have been better for all of you, lady, if you hadn't have recognized me. Why? If they didn't recognize him, theoretically, what could the misfit have done? Or not done. He could have let him go. Now, no witnesses. So it's clear what's going to happen. Bailey turns his head and says something to his mother that we're told shocked even the children. What do you think he says? She begins to cry. The misfit turns red. Like he's embarrassed by what Bailey has said. How long do you think Bailey has been holding in whatever it was he said? Bailey begins this little part, we're in a predicament. What does Bailey know is going to happen? We're dead, man. And then his ma goes off and has to say, and he says, seriously? We're told that she lives with Bailey. He's her only son. Everything we've seen of Bailey, describe him. Is he a strong, I don't mean physically. I mean character-wise. Is he a strong person? Does he take control of situations? No. How does he deal with his mother? He simply ignores her. Why does she live with him? What kind of man/boy is Bailey? I'm looking for a specific phrase. I think he's a mama's boy. He's never gotten out from under her wing, so to speak. Okay? And so the misfit says, don't mind him. Sometimes man says things he don't mean. I don't reckon he meant to talk to you that way. Oh, I bet you he did. I'll bet you that's been building for a long time. What does the grandmother say? She doesn't say, yes, I think you're right. Bailey really is kind-hearted. Bailey really is a good man. You wouldn't shoot a lady, would you? What does she mean? You won't shoot these little children. That's not what she says. You wouldn't shoot this mother with the baby. No. You wouldn't shoot a lady. What has she just done to the other 5 members of this family? Phrase that's used today is thrown them under the bus. Hung them out to dry. Hate to have to. I know you're a good man. You don't look a bit like you have common blood. I know you must come from nice people. What does she mean, I know you're a good man? You won't kill me? Yeah, what else? Where'd we hear the phrase? She told Red Sam, you're a good man. Why? Because he let those 2 fellers charge their car without paying for it. Red Sam says a good man is hard to find. After his wife says, there's nobody in this world you can trust. And I don't mean nobody looking at her husband. They've got a great marriage. I know how does she know he's a good man? He doesn't look like he has, what is common blood? Is she saying he's like everyone else or he's not like everyone else? Common here probably means low. Breaking up society between high-class people and low-class people. Where does she think she is? I'm a lady. I'm high class. She's got on her Sunday best. Okay? You must come from nice people. That is, well-bred people. He says, yes, finest people in the world. God never made a finer woman than my mother. My daddy's heart was pure gold. And he squats down on the ground and says, watch them children, Bobby Lee. You know they make me nervous. The 6 people of the family huddle in front of him. And he looks up at the sky. Ain't a cloud in the sky. Don't see no sun, but don't see no cloud neither. Okay? We're down here in the gulch. They look up. You look up in the sky, and there's no cloud, but you can't see the sun either. What do you see? Describe. What color? Blue. Yes, it's a beautiful day, the grandmother says. You shouldn't call yourself the misfit. I know you're a good man at heart. I can just look at you and tell. Bailey, shh. But you shut up. Let me handle this. And we're told he's squatting in the position of a runner about to sprint forward. Now that doesn't mean he's just squatting. That almost implies like if he had starting blocks, he'd have his fingers out in front of him, he'd have 1 foot farther back, 1 foot, he's just getting ready to do what? He's gonna bolt, man. Is he gonna bolt towards the misfit? Or is he going to save his own sorry you know what? Hiram said, it's going to take about half hour to fix this car. He goes, okay. First, you and Bobby Lee go take him and that little boy, step over yonder with you. Boys want to ask you something, he says to Bailey. Would you mind stepping back in them woods with them? Bailey, we're in a terrible predicament. Nobody realizes what this is. Bailey does. And his voice cracks like he's nearly in tears. The grandmother reaches up, adjusts her hat brim, She stares at it because it falls off. Hiram pulls Bailey up by the arm as if he were assisting an old man. Notice, he's gentle. Okay? John Wesley catches hold of his father's hand. And Bobby Lee follows. So Hiram's in front, Bailey holding John Wesley's hand, Bobby Lee behind. And they go off towards the woods. And as they reach the dark edge, Bailey turns and, leaning against a pine tree, says, "I'll be back in a minute, Mama. Wait on me." Who's Mama? This isn't Ronald Reagan referring to his wife Nancy as Mommy. This is Bailey talking to his mother. What does Bailey know is about to happen? Does Bailey think Hiram and Bobby Lee are going to ask him some questions? No. He knows they're taking him back there to be killed. Who's the last person he speaks to? Not his wife. His mother. To me, that's the nail in the coffin that says, Mama's boy. Come back this instant. Bailey boy. I just know you're a good man. She turns to the misfit. You're not a bit common. No, I ain't a good man, he says after a second. But I ain't the worst in the world neither. My daddy said I was a different breed of dog from others, from my brother and sisters. He says, Daddy said it's some that can live their whole life out without asking about it, and it's others has to know why it is. What's the it of their life? Others have to know, why do I exist? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And this boy's one of those. He's going to be into everything. Why is he going to be into everything? To try to figure out, what does it all mean? Okay? And he says, I'm sorry I don't have a shirt on for you ladies. Buried our clothes. Grandmother, it's perfectly all right. Maybe Bailey has an extra shirt in his suitcase. I'll look. Bailey's wife, where are they taking him? Notice she doesn't say where are they taking them. Who's the him? Is it Bailey or John Wesley? Can't refer to both. And then the misfit goes on to talking about his father. They keep talking. And the grandmother says, you can be honest if only you try. Think how wonderful it'd be. Settle down. Live a comfortable life. Not have to think about somebody chasing you. And he's like, yep, somebody's always chasing you. The grandmother notices how thin his shoulder blades are. And then she says, do you ever pray? She's going to spring Jesus on him. No. And down there in the Georgia woods, that pistol shot just echoes, followed closely by another. Bailey boy. I was a gospel singer for once. He says, talks about all the stuff he's done. Grandmother, pray, pray, pray. Is she telling him to pray? Or is she trying to pray? Pray, pray. I was never a bad boy that I remembered, he said. And yet I'd done something wrong. I got sent to the penitentiary. I was buried alive. What does he mean he was buried alive? He doesn't mean literally, because he's obviously living and breathing. But take this room, you shrink it down to an 8x6 cell. What do you have? Wall, 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 or iron bars. Wall, wall, buried alive. That's when you should have started to pray. she says. What'd you do to get sent to the penitentiary? And where is he? Where is the misfit at this point? He's doing what I just did. It's like he is mentally, he's back in prison. Turn to the right, it's a wall. Turn to the left, it's a wall. Look up, it's a ceiling. Look down, it's a floor. I forget what I did. Lady, I sat there trying to remember what it was I'd done. And I ain't recalled. When I had Jean-Paul Sartre's name over here and I mentioned his play, No Exit, in that play, the characters, and there's only a couple if I remember correctly, they're in a room. Guess what the room doesn't have? No door. There's no exit. What is the room? It's this. It's life. There's no exit. That is, you can't escape what happens. He says, I don't remember what I did. She says, maybe they put you in by mistake. No, wasn't no mistake. They had papers. That is, they had evidence on me. You must have stolen something. Nobody had anything I wanted. He said, as the head doctor at the penitentiary, a shrink, psychologist. Okay? He said what I'd done was kill my daddy, but I know that was a lie. My daddy died in 1919 of epidemic flu. What was the doctor talking about? The first play we're going to read. Oedipus the King. He's talking about the Oedipus complex. He's a Freudian psychologist. What that means is Freudian psychologists essentially say every problem every person has goes back to, if you're a male, you're wanting to supplant your father in your mother's bed. That's it. It's all about you want to have sex with your mom. And if you're a woman, you have, that's called the Oedipal complex. And if you're a woman, it's you have the Electra complex. You want to sleep with your father. That's it. That's the basis of all human problems. It's a load of nonsense. The grandmother. If you would pray, Jesus would help you. That's right. And she's like, oh, there's an opening. The door's been opened. I can preach Jesus to him, and we can both live. Well, then why don't you pray? Don't want no help. Doing all right by myself. Bobby Lee and Hiram come back. One of them dragging a shirt. The shirt that Bailey was wearing. Throw me that shirt, Bobby Lee. He puts the shirt on. He says, no, lady, I found out the crime doesn't matter. You can do one thing or you can do another. You can kill a man or take a tire off his car. Because sooner or later you're going to forget what it was you done and just be punished for it. Those two things I was talking about, you can kill someone, you can be the Hitler, or you can be the Mother Teresa and help people. It doesn't matter. Children's mother had begun to make heaving noises as if she couldn't get her breath. She's going into shock. He says, lady, would you and that little girl like to step off yonder with Bobby Lee and Hiram and join your husband? Do you want to go die too? Yes, thank you. Why? She knows what's going to happen. Why does she say yes? Better to be dead with her husband than what? Living without him. Her left arm just dangling because shoulder's broken. Hiram helped that lady up, the misfit said. Bobby Lee, you hold on that little girl's hand. I don't want to hold hands with him. He reminds me of a pig. She's lucky Bobby Lee just plug her right there. Okay? Fat boy blushed, laughed, caught her by the arm, pulled her off into the woods after Hiram and her mother. Notice June Star doesn't take her mother's hand. Why did we get that little detail about John Wesley and Bailey? What does that little detail show between the two of them? That John Wesley takes his father's hand. Maybe two things. Fear, love. Do we see any other love anywhere else? Not really. But it's a quote unquote come to Jesus moment. I mean, they're getting ready to die. He makes a connection with his father. All right? So they go off into the woods, and now the grandmother's left alone with the misfit. She'd lost her voice, not a cloud in the sky or the sun. Again, what's up above? Just blue. Anything going on there? Why does O'Connor keep referencing this? I think it's because there's an image that she wants us to see. She says in her letters that she uses the image of baptism frequently. What is baptism in the Christian tradition? By the way, Christians didn't introduce this. The Jews had a baptism. It just had a different meaning, washing with water and such. In the Christian tradition, you go down into the water and you are dying to this world, to your old self, fallen sinful self. And when you come up out of the water, you are being resurrected. It's dying with Christ and being resurrected with Christ. Pause for a moment. Go in the ocean, go in a pool, go under the water, and look up. What do you see? Blue. If it's outside, not like in a church building, you see blue. They are down beneath ground level, so to speak. You look up, and it's blue. This is the death and dying part. The resurrection part doesn't get continued in this imagery. This is the dying, okay? We're told. The grandmother just starts saying, Jesus, Jesus. Why? She's praying. Notice she's not saying anything. It's just Jesus, Jesus. Yes, Jesus throwing everything off balance. It was the same case with him as with me, except he hadn't committed any crime. And they could prove I committed one because they had the papers on me. What has the misfit just done? He brings Jesus and the story of Jesus full square into the story. He says, Jesus and I are essentially the same. The only difference, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't rape anybody. He didn't steal. With me, they had the evidence. Okay? So he says, of course, they never shown me the papers. I never saw the proof they had on me. So he says, that's why I sign myself now. Like everybody he kills, he writes, the misfit in blood or something. I said long ago, you get your signature and sign everything you do, keep a copy. Then you'll know what you've done. And you can hold up the crime to the punishment and see, do they match in the end? You'll see, you'll have something to prove you ain't been treated right. What the hell is he talking about? Life. How has he not been treated right? What's his life been like? Hell. He's got a crappy life. And what does he mean by using the language of punishment? It's like he's saying, I'm being punished for something. I want to know what I did. And because he doesn't know what he did, what does he do? He's going to make the punishment that he feels he's experiencing fit the crimes he doesn't think he's done. So, he does the crimes. He kills. I call myself the misfit because I can't make what all I done wrong fit what all I gone through in punishment. The punishment's not talking about the state pen. He's talking about the crappy life he's had. We hear a scream. Does it seem right to you, lady? One is punished a heap, another ain't punished at all? I mean, that's a question people ask all the time. Why do some people's lives just seem to be perfect? And others have to scrape just to get their eyes out of the crap. What's the question that causes? Where's the fairness in that? That's his point. Jesus, you've got good blood. I know you wouldn't shoot a lady. I know you come from nice. Pray, Jesus, you ought not to shoot a lady. I'll give you all the money. What's the lady she's talking about? We've heard one shot. We don't know who was killed with that one. Is she talking about the children's mother? Hell no. Then we hear two more shots. Why? Baby and June Star. Bailey boy, Bailey's already started rotting, metaphorically speaking. Jesus was the only one that ever raised the dead. What? How does he get Bailey boy to Jesus was the only one that raised the dead? What is the misfit talking about? Lazarus, Jesus goes to the tomb, come forth. He calls Lazarus, and here comes this guy who's been dead for 4 days, all wrapped up, walking out. That's why he says, lady, you can't bring him back. And he shouldn't have done it. That's an interesting wrinkle. Why shouldn't Jesus have raised the dead? He thrown everything off balance. If you're dead, you're supposed to stay what? Dead. If he did what he said, if Jesus did what he said he did, then it's nothing for you but throw everything away and follow him. I had it written right here. Matthew 19. Jesus tells the rich young ruler, you lack one thing. Go sell everything you have, give it to the poor, and come and follow me. The misfit says, if Jesus really did what he said, then there's nothing else to do. Okay? But throw everything away and follow him. And if he didn't, if all those stories aren't true, then it's nothing for you to do but enjoy the few minutes you got left the best way you can. And there's the existentialism and nihilism thing. If he is what he said he was, is what he said he is, you got to follow him. If he isn't, what's the logical conclusion that the misfit reaches? Then it doesn't matter what the hell you do. Life is meaningless. Just do what? Enjoy the few minutes you got left in the best way you can by killing somebody or burning down his house. Might be, not saying it was, a little allusion to barn burning, or doing some other meanness to him. Why meanness? Why not kindness? There's no basis for kindness. There's no basis. The misfit is suggesting. And the philosophers that I mentioned said this. There's no basis for morality without something supernatural out there. Without some kind of standard that judges rightness or wrongness. The standard we kind of commonly refer to is fairness. But there can be no sense of fairness if this is all there is. If there's nothing exterior to us that says you ought to do something, then there's only what? Do whatever the hell you want, man. That's what the misfit's saying. No pleasure but meanness. And notice his voice becomes almost a snarl, like a wild dog. The old lady mumbles, maybe he didn't raise the dead. Who? He's shaking her core. Maybe he didn't raise the dead. She's been saying, Jesus, Jesus, pray, pray, pray. What kind of faith has she had up to this moment? Has it been based in anything? Has it been tested? No, it hasn't. Okay? And he says, when she says, maybe he didn't raise the dead, who of his followers did not believe the resurrection? Anybody know? Thomas. One of Jesus' 12 disciples wasn't there the Sunday morning, a week after the resurrection, wasn't there when Jesus appeared in the upper room and all the other disciples saw him. He's there the next Sunday and they tell him, we've seen the risen Lord. And he's like, get out of here. I will not believe until he says I can put my finger in the hole in his hand and my hand in his side. The next Sunday, they're all in the upper room, the door is closed, and Jesus appears. He doesn't come through the door, and he taps Thomas on the shoulder, and he goes, come on. And he makes Thomas put his finger through his hand, and his hand and shoulder. And Thomas says, my Lord and my God, and Jesus says, blessed are you who believe because you have seen, but more blessed are those who haven't seen and believe. Look at what the misfit says. I wasn't there, so I can't say he didn't. Because I wasn't there, I can't say he didn't raise the dead. I wished I had have been there. What does he mean? Seeing is believing. I don't want to go on faith. He wants what? I want to know. I want it to be like 2 + 2 = 4. It ain't right I wasn't there. Because if I had have been there, I would have known. Listen, lady. His voice is getting high. Why? What do people do when they get agitated? When they get angry? Their voices raise in pitch. If I had have been there, I would have known, and I wouldn't be like I am now. Meaning, I wouldn't be a misfit. His voice seemed about to crack, and the grandmother's head cleared for an instant. Instant means what? Momentarily. It's not cleared perfectly for good. She saw the man's face twisted close to her own as if he were going to cry, and she murmured, why, you're one of my babies. You're one of my own children. And touches him on the shoulder. Boom, 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 boom. And he blows her away. Why? What does she mean? You're one of my babies. You're one of my own. She doesn't mean it literally. Who is the grandmother? What does the grandmother stand for? I think, I could be wrong, the church. However you define the Christian church, in all of its beautiful varieties and flavors, Catholic, Protestant, whatever. What has happened to her for a moment? Pardon the language. All the bullshit that has filled her mind has been wiped away. Her, the churches. All the nonsense has been washed, and she sees what? When does she see the misfit as one of her children? One of her offspring? When he's suffering the most. What is O'Connor saying? What is the church's job? What is the church's duty? Is it to build big buildings? Is it to have sports? It's to do what? Jesus told his followers in Matthew 25 how the judgment's going to happen. What does he never say? It all depends on what you believe. It all depends on what you know. If you can quote the Bible back front to back, you're saying, nope. What is it? Feed the poor, feed the hungry, care for the poor, visit widows, visit those in prison. And he says, inasmuch as you've done it to the least of these, you've done it to me. If you've given water to somebody hungry, if you've given food to somebody thirsty, food to somebody hungry, clothed somebody naked, visited somebody in prison, you've done it to me. And his followers go, Lord, when did we do that? When you did it to the least of these. That is what O'Connor is saying. Notice what she does. She doesn't just say, you're one of my own, you're one of my babies. What does she do that causes him to shoot her? It's the very next thing. She touches him. Why? It's almost the most important thing. When you touch somebody, what do you literally do? What's that doing? What is this finger doing with this finger? It's connecting. You're making a contact. In other words, he's not what? Wall, 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 wall. She breaks through those walls. In other words, no exit? Yes, there is an exit. Where's that exit? It's the very next person you meet. It's connecting that way. Because what certain existentialists said is, all of us, hate to say it, we all live in our own little boxes. And we can't escape them. O'Connor is suggesting, yes, we can. How? Making those connections. Okay? Notice the misfit. She would have been a good woman if it had been somebody there to shoot her every minute of her life. And I think with O'Connor putting that in his mouth, she's taking that existentialism of Sartre and Camus, and she's making it Christian existentialism. There is a branch of Christianity that essentially says Christianity is ultimately existentialist. You do have to live moment by moment. But it's that reaching out. Okay, that's important. All right, we'll stop there. There's a quiz up. It's the first quiz over Faulkner and Hawthorne. I don't remember what it's due. I think it's due tomorrow night. I'm going to put up a quiz over O'Connor that will be due, I think it is Sunday night. Next week, I'll have the exam up over all fiction that we've covered, okay? All the stuff in the book and the stories. And we'll start the drama material on Monday. So read the introduction to drama and the background to Sophocles that's in your book. You can start reading the play Oedipus. I've sent you a PDF. If you want to just use the one in the book, that's fine, but you've got to be able to follow along. Okay, that's all.